CFR strategist last week praises al-Qaeda. Actually, this is just Tuesday, August 7th. But the CFR report came out last week. Paul Watson wrote about it on Tuesday. CFR strategist praises al-Qaeda bombings in Syria. This is from the Council on Foreign Relations online publication. The Syrian rebels, the rebels, would be immeasurably weaker today without al-Qaeda in their ranks. By and large, Free Syrian Army, FSA battalions are tired, divided, sounds like the criminal government, chaotic and ineffective, feeling abandoned by the West. You mean the bankers that have occupied the West. Rebel forces are increasingly demoralized as they square off with the Assad regime's superior weaponry and professional army, writes the senior fellow at the Middle Eastern Studies with the CFR. Al-Qaeda fighters, however, may help improve morale. The influx of jihadists brings discipline, religious fervor, battle experience from Iraq, funding from Sunni sympathizers in the Gulf, and most importantly, deadly results, like 9/11. In short, the FSA needs al-Qaeda now. And I read last week that London Guardian article where they're like, man, they are really tough. And they got nice black uniforms and they fly their flags. And the Guardian said al-Qaeda leading the freedom fight and blowing up churches and synagogues. In fact, that was in the news yesterday. Blowing up, ethnic cleansing in Africa. They're in Libya lining up the blacks. It's their country, machine gunning tens of thousands. NATO landing 3,000 al-Qaeda in Tripoli, blowing up the city. It's so loving. Of course, I'm here being sarcastic how sick this is. But joining us is a lady who goes bravely just by SyrianGirl. Her family, she's been with us before, I'm going to give you a brief bio, actually left because of political persecution under the Assad senior. Okay, so she comes from one of the big, high-up families in the country. Won't say where she lives, but she joins us via Skype. So this is somebody who didn't even like Assad, okay? I mean, that's like Steve Patriotism doesn't like Assad, was arrested by his father, tried to, basically overthrow those countries. Steve Patriotism, former head of the State Department Black Ops, said, yeah, this is wrong. And I can't believe I'm having to say Russia, I understand why Russia's trying to keep Assad in. Because they're blowing up and burning the churches and killing Alawite Muslims, who are really Christians, and killing a bunch of other, it is hellish. And if you're a Jew, and that's one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world, you're just dead. If you're a Christian, you'll probably be dead. Alawite, you're dead. And they are just blowing everything up. And it's just incredible. So SyrianGirl's been very brave. She's had the globalists, of course, attack her and demonize her because when you're over the target, you get flack. Everything she talked about here, I don't know, 8, 9 months ago has now been confirmed. Everything Tarpley, when he traveled there 6, 7, 8 months ago, was longer ago, and was in areas where al-Qaeda, they kill people and then blame it on Assad. They blow up schools and blame it on Assad. I remember 6 months ago, our media would say events were done by Assad when they've now admitted it was al-Qaeda. This is called peaceful protesting when you blow up a school or blow up a police department by these people, by the scum that runs our country. So joining us from an undisclosed location is SyrianGirl via video Skype. If radio listeners are tuning in, you can go to prisonplanet.tv to see the video. If not, we'll archive it later today for everybody for free. But good to have you here, SyrianGirl. Tell us, since we talked a few months ago, the breakdown from family you've got in Syria, what the latest intel is, because your intelligence you've given us has turned out to be absolutely on target.
Well, according to what sources on the ground, I think that, any sort of sympathy people had with the, as they call it, rebellion, it's really like a foreign-funded insurgency, is out, especially when the major cities have been attacked by outsiders. It's not like a ingrown sort of rebellion that's happening from inside the city. These people are coming from the outskirt towns, or they're coming from around the Middle East, and they're attacking the 2 major cities, which is Damascus and Aleppo. And people's lives have been disrupted. There's been bombings. There's been shooting on the street. My aunt was in hospital, and she was, in a very critical state. And at the same time, she had to deal with the fact that there was bombing just outside the hospital. So thank God that's over now, because the military has now secured Damascus, which is the capital city. And at the moment, the same thing is happening in Aleppo. The military is again just about to declare a victory in Aleppo. They're not quite there yet. But the insurgents or the foreign mercenaries, there's so many names for them. they're inside the outskirt of Aleppo, which is the most populous city, but not the capital. And they're in a place called Salah ad-Din, which in Western language you'd probably understand more as Saladin. So, yes.
And bottom line, they're basically Sunni Wahhabist jihadis who just want to get rid of all the Muslim sects that are there. I mean, that's admitted. This is a Saudi Arabian, Western-backed, scorched earth extermination program being hailed by the Nobel Peace Prize winner as loving.
Well, you know, you have the Wahhabis, this sort of, it's called the FSA, you know, the Free Syrian Army, whatever. It's got many different factions, and some of them are so extreme. The Wahhabis, which are affiliated to al-Qaeda, it's basically the same as al-Qaeda. They hate everybody that isn't Wahhabi. They don't just hate Christians. They don't just hate Alawites. They also hate Sunnis, because to them, Sunnis are bad Muslims as well. So it's not just, you know, Sunnis being the ones against the government, because actually the majority of Syria are Sunni. I come from a Sunni background, but we don't want anything to do with those sectarian, New World Order controlled puppets of the imperialists. So whilst you have like Wahhabis taking power, as the Guardian and the CFR said, inside the insurgency, there are some Muslim Brotherhood elements in there as well. And they're also controlled, of course, by Turkey, which is a Muslim Brotherhood country. And they're being supported by the new Muslim Brotherhood wave that's taken over under the auspices of the Arab Spring.
Let's talk about the massacres, the churches, the jihadis dressed up in Christian Orthodox robes, desecrating churches, killing people. It's now come out, confirmed what you said, I don't know, the first time you came on 7, 8, 9 months ago or longer, that they are doing fake newscasts. Syrian Danny, it did turn out they had people laying down like they were dead, fake burials. I mean, it's just amazing. And Anderson Cooper just plays along with it.
It's been a total media war. That's really what it's been. It's trying to create this illusion of all these horrors happening in Syria as undergone by the Syrian government. As you know, they killed like 200 children under the age of 5 just so that they can have this false flag Hula massacre, which in the end blew up in their face, because it turned out that even a German newspaper said that a lot of the families that were killed were actually either pro-government Sunnis that took part in the elections or Alawites. So, you know, again, with the Christians, their churches were desecrated in homes. I think the whole thing that's happening in Syria right now is to try to get the Christians out and turn them into refugees, because they want to basically remove all the secular countries inside the Middle East. Libya was secular. Iraq used to be secular. So it's now Syria's turn. You know, Syria is one of the last secular countries left. And so they want to just get the Christians out for whatever reason and just Islamitize the whole place. Maybe to have some kind of interreligious war that, you know, destroys us all in the end. Exactly.
No, that's the stated Pentagon and Israeli plan, is balkanization, get the Shiites and Sunnis all killing each other. Wow, instead of, they would have just left Mohammed Mossadegh in 53, pro-America, secular, unifier, wanted to build up Iran. The whole place could just be glistening, tourist attractions with all the great beaches and everything. Instead, a crazy sect set up by British intelligence in Lawrence of Arabia was given control of what became Saudi Arabia, and now exports mass murder and death everywhere. So that, I mean, that's the policy here. Shut off our power plants, ship our jobs overseas, attack the family. The globalists want everyone on their knees and screwed up. And I mean, that's why they caught British intelligence. London Guardian, Associated Press, in Basra, dressed up like Wahhabist, running around shooting Shiites to get a war going, and it did. Just because you want to keep them fighting with each other as a pretext to be there at first, and then after that it got so out of hand they had to pay them off to quit killing each other. That was the so-called surge. It's just absolutely insane. Then they export radical Muslims into the West and use them to menace people so they can take all of our liberties, and then flip the script and now say that patriots who are anti-banker occupation, that we are the terrorist. I mean, it is just incredible to sit there and see the Council on Foreign Relations saying, we need al-Qaeda. What is it like for you to be ridiculed when you first started going public, what, over a year ago total? In fact, you probably know the dates. When did you first go public?
I think it was about, at most, 6 months ago.
Man, time has been flying. I think you did videos before 6 months ago.
Maybe you're right. I'm not very good with time.
Go to her YouTube site and see. I'm obsessed with this now. I think you've been doing videos for almost a year. But side issue, the point is, what is it like to now see them say, oh, there's no al-Qaeda, that's not true. Or, okay, there is al-Qaeda, we got to take over because they're there. And people are like, but you work, but I mean, you're running them. To, oh, al-Qaeda is good. I mean, what is that like for you to sit there and watch that happen and the fact that you've been vindicated?
I'm kind of bemused, to be honest. I mean, I've known it for years. I know I've only been public for maybe a year, but before that, I've been following this thing, you know, since 10 years ago. So I know that they created al-Qaeda. They created it in Afghanistan when they were trying to fight the Soviets. So it's, yes, I've been vindicated, but unfortunately, people have not completely realized it. They are realizing it, but it's not across the board. You know, there's still people giving monies to NGOs like Amnesty International and thinking that intervention in Syria in any form, even giving money to these so-called rebels, these insurgents, is a good thing. You know, people are still buying into it. And, you know, it's amazing the goal of it. You know, it's so in your face. They love al-Qaeda now. Yesterday they hated it. Before that they loved it. Yesterday they were the terrorists. Muslims were the terrorists. Today, you know, the veterans that fought, the American veterans that fought in the Middle East are now in America listed under the terror watch list. So it's just the way they work. You know, it's total opportunism. They do it because it gets them power. That's the whole idea. And maybe there's some ideological basis behind it as well. The powers that be, they have that crackpot religion that they want to install. So,
and just to be technical, you went public about 8 months ago. So it wasn't 6, it wasn't years, but it was about 8 months ago. Now again, since then, this has all come out in the open, which the power structure did not want to be out in the open. In fact, Bilderberg in Switzerland a year and 3 months ago was very upset from our internal moles that it was in the LA Times that al-Qaeda was being brought in by NATO, the U.S., and the Muslim Brotherhood out of eastern areas there in Egypt into the west in Libya. Now that was confirmed. They're very upset about this fact now because that shatters their whole paradigm. To break down how the battle's going, what is your best level analysis of where things are? I mean, is the Assad regime in more trouble than it was 6 months ago, or has it turned the tide? Now we're hearing about NATO maybe bombing with peace bombs again. Well,
what's happened now is, you know, ever since the Homs battle in Bab Amr, that was very decisive, and it sort of that was a turning point. You know, that was basically the Benghazi for the insurgency, the home base. And that was destroyed. So they no longer have that. So they are sort of discombobulated, and they did launch an offensive on Damascus, but they hold no ground. And every offensive they've launched against the city, they've been pushed back, and they're going to be pushed back again in Aleppo. So time and time again, the army has been victorious. And if it hasn't been, I would tell you that. You know, I have no problem telling you exactly what's happening. But even if you listen to the analysts, Robert Fisk, anybody else, they will tell you the same thing. The insurgency is being defeated time and time again.
Exactly. So now they want to send in the Nobel Peace bombs. In fact, I think they should start painting the Nobel Peace sign on, because, you know, war is peace in this 1984. Al-Qaeda is our enemy. Now they're our friend. I mean, it's direct 1984. So expanding on this area, what do you expect them to do now? More cruise missiles they claim are suicide bombers right through the window of the Ministry of Defense, you know, killing the chief folks?
Well, the thing is, about a no-fly zone, they can't do it. If they could do it, they would already have done it. But the thing that stops them is the Syrian air defense, which they now admit is, you know, one of the best in the world. We have very good surface-to-air missiles. But what they can do is even more dangerous. They can do the chemical weapons false flag that's been talked about.
I'm glad you brought that up. Get into that. That's even been in Israeli news that al-Qaeda has been given chemicals from Gaddafi's stockpile and all those missiles, and they're getting ready to blame Syrian government. Tell us about that.
Even if it weren't Gaddafi's stockpile, I've heard a journalist, Lizzie Fallon, tell me that actually the insurgents were, the rebels in Libya were given chemical weapons and did use them against other tribes in Libya. So they have been used before. So the idea is to give the chemical weapons, or maybe they have already given them the chemical weapons to the Syrian insurgents. I think they already have, because we see them all wearing gas masks now, and there's shipments of gas masks coming in. And to launch a chemical weapon attack and then to accuse the Syrian government of doing it and take it to the Security Council. Because as things are now, because they can't do a no-fly zone, they'd like some other way to disarm Syria. They'd like something to hold over its head. And as we know what happened with Iraq, first of all, the UN came in and they made sure that Iraq couldn't defend itself. They made sure that Iraq doesn't have chemical weapons. And then the US attacked. So that's the same narrative over and over again.
By the way, Syrian Girl, I told the guys on Monday I wanted to get you on, and I'd forgotten why I wanted to get you on when I saw you on the list today. I mean, I wanted a general report. That's why I wanted you on, is because you've been breaking down, and I went and looked up the articles you showed. It's even in Israeli news that al-Qaeda is getting chemical weapons and it may be a false flag. I mean, that's amazing. And then that's how they'll bring NATO in, saying, look at that dirty Assad. He used chemical weapons on his poor people. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com, None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, You in Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. Now, Syrian Girl, we're going to continue to the next segment on this. It's so important here today. The spectacle that in the last 2 weeks they've been hyping that Assad's going to use chemical weapons, and then admitting that, and suddenly you see al-Qaeda people running around with the gas mask, and even Debka files saying the word is al-Qaeda's got chemical weapons out of Libya and all those missiles they got. What's going to happen now with thousands of heat-seeking missiles, over 2,000 alone are heat-seeking and radar-guided, 10,000 plus of just general anti-aircraft missiles they got in Libya, and now our friend al-Qaeda, we're told, is going to have these? I mean, but how is sticking their hands down my pants at the airport going to save me, Syrian Girl, from their loving al-Qaeda?
Well, they do have anti-air now. We've got pictures of them with the Strela, two surface-to-air heat-seeking, take it wherever you go missiles. So it's already in their hands. They haven't been able to get the experience to use it appropriately. And, it's not going to save you. This whole thing is going to destroy us all, because the only way this can end is in a war. And it might be a regional war. If you're lucky, it might be a world war. It might be a nuclear world war, because you have just Russia and China not backing down, and you have NATO and the GCC countries and Israel not backing down. So, if they don't pull back, this is how it's going to end, because Syria can't continue like this for years and years. Eventually something's going to break. Someone's going to move in. Someone's going to cross that line, and when that happens, it's going to be all over, really.
Do you want to apologize for being unpatriotic and not wanting al-Qaeda to murder and burn and kill hundreds of thousands of people? Syrian Girl, do you want to apologize that in the last 8 months you fought against this here on air? Do you want to support al-Qaeda like our president does? Do you want to pledge allegiance?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do not want to support al-Qaeda.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done has been right.
right, Syrian Girl, reporting from an undisclosed location. Everything you've talked about the last 8 months has turned out to be accurate. The Russians are talking about the Third World War. A lot of analysts are. You've got the floor for the last 5 minutes of this portion of the interview to break down other facets.
Thank you very much. I did have the urge to say that you're a patriot and I'm a patriot, so we understand each other. We don't want enemies. We just want to live the way we want to live independently and have safety in our land. And what Syria is facing at the moment, you can say whatever you want about each side. Every side might have a sad story. That's absolutely true. But at the end of the day, Syria is facing a foreign attack by foreigners, and everybody who loves their country, who wants it to be secure, would oppose that in their own nation. And the fact is that we're both dealing with traitors. You have traitors in your government. We have traitors not just outside our government, but inside our government too. Corruption is a form of treason. So at the end of the day, you have people defecting. They're being bought. This is in Syria. They're being bought by the UK, which has pledged now another £5 million to go to try to fuel the war in Syria. And you have also the US pledging money. You have Qatar pledging money. And if this was a grassroots movement, why would it need so many fighters and so many weapons and so much money from foreigners, not Syrian people? I've seen revolutions happen without such things, grassroots, where millions of people have striked and said what they wanted. But that's not what's happening in Syria. And globally speaking, Syria is not a country that is a New World Order country. We do not ascribe to them. And so they call us a rogue state. And they want to push us to be in line with everybody else. And this is what this is all about. When they want their regional global war to happen, they want to be able to control both sides. And al-Qaeda is about controlling the side of the Muslims. And if they can get all the Muslims to be under the banner of al-Qaeda, just like they tried to get the Iraqi resistance in Iraq to be under the banner of al-Qaeda, though they didn't succeed, then they can control both sides of the war. And they can keep it going on and on and on. So I think that's really what I wanted to say. We're all fighting the same creature. And I hope that, we will be victorious.
Well, Syrian Girl, you're right. How can people check out your Twitter, Facebook, YouTube channels? Give out that contact info for people that want to learn more about your reporting.
My YouTube is Syrian Girl Partisan, and Partisan is with an S, and there's no spaces. And Partisan Girl is my Twitter, and Partisan Girl is my Facebook as well. So if you find any one of them, you'll find the other ones.
Well, charging up al-Qaeda and giving them all this power is incredibly dangerous. And our media thinks we're so stupid. In a year, they'll be saying we've got to go into Syria because al-Qaeda runs it. And al-Qaeda blew up this, blew up that. So we've got to surveil the American people. It's incredibly transparent. And if our criminal government would run al-Qaeda, they would run the mass shootings. And they have. If they would run Fast and Furious, they could do anything. And they have. And this is not our government. This is the globalists doing this. They hate the Syrians. They hate the American people. They hate all national sovereignty. And Assad has been a lot better than his father, probably one of the best stabilizing forces there. Gaddafi been working with the West. They set him up to put al-Qaeda in and just to engage incredible crimes. And your family are political, I guess, refugees of Syria. You're not Assad fans. It's so bad, you've got to fight al-Qaeda. You've got to be against the West. Bringing in jihadis that were on the BBC in Libya with signs saying, "Here we come, Syria," 6 to 8 months ago. I mean, incredible. Syrian Girl, thank you so much for your courage. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?